I was listening to a very interesting podcast episode today on one of the money podcasts that I listen to, and it's nothing to do, well, actually it does have a lot to do with money. I was going to say it has nothing to do with money, but actually it has a lot to do with money. But I don't want that to scare you away. I want you to just stay open-minded to this episode because I want to change, not necessarily change the way you think, but just bring awareness to how you think about this particular situation. So there's been studies that say women are on the rise in being the breadwinners of their family. So for example, the mother, the mom, the woman would make more money than the man, the husband, the dad in their family. This is happening more and more. But I feel like we don't talk about it enough as a society, and that there's even some households who are single income households where the dad stays at home and the mom goes to work. It's funny because when I was listening to this episode, I was like, oh man, this is the kind of stuff I love. And it's not really slapping like a gender role on anybody. It's just saying like, hey, this is what works best for our family, and to just be a little more open-minded when we're approaching people. And assuming that since somebody is a woman that she should be at home, or assuming that since somebody's a dad that he should be the breadwinner. And so they did a survey, and I'm not going to remember exactly what the stats were on it, but a surprisingly large amount of men and women both lied about their income levels on this survey to make other people feel better. And I will link to this podcast episode in the show notes. So if you're interested, go give it a listen. Like, I really, really enjoyed this episode. It was a woman who works at Google, and she just really shed some light on being a woman breadwinner and having a stay-at-home dad in their family. And so what she had said was there was a surprisingly large amount of people who lied on their income, meaning that women would reportedly put that they made less money than they actually earned because they didn't want other people to think that they were out earning their spouses. And on the opposite side of that, men lied about their income in the situation that they increased what they made. They lied. They said that they made more money. So this reminds me of like little man syndrome, where like somebody has, and this is going to sound terrible, but this is what I used to say when I was younger. You know, if you see somebody driving a big badass truck and romping around, I'm like, oh, he's got little dick syndrome, right? Like they're overcompensating for something because they don't feel worthy of whatever it is that they're being paid. Similar to women, we shrink ourselves. We try to like blend in. We don't want to like ruffle any feathers. And so we minimize our success to make other people feel comfortable. And so men and women do this in both areas when it comes to income. And I'm not saying everybody does this, but a surprisingly large amount of people did. So let's say that your husband makes $90,000 a year. He would say on this survey, oh, let's just call it 100. I make $100,000 a year, even though that's a $10,000 difference. Or for example, if a woman made $110,000, she would just say, oh, I made $100,000. And she would decrease her salary by $10,000 just so that they could meet in the middle and quote unquote be equals, because we tend to attach labels to everybody and who's better, who's not. And me and my husband do this too. We always kind of have like pissing matches, but I don't know if it's necessarily between gender roles or it's just because we are competitive with one another. And this is actually a topic that I would really like to discuss with him on the podcast, because I'm sure he will have a very, very different take than what I do on this episode or on this And so we've been on both sides of the spectrum. I've been the breadwinner, he's been the breadwinner, I've been the breadwinner, he's been the breadwinner, and we've also been equals throughout this too. So I've seen how my mindset has been specifically to this situation. So when I didn't make enough money, see, there I go. That's a story right there. I didn't make enough money. Caught myself though. So when I made less money per year than my husband did, I would compare my success to his. I would also say things like, oh, maybe I'm not worth that much money. Nobody would ever pay me that much money. could I really make that much money? And so I was almost like putting myself down for not being as important as my husband based on his salary. And I think this is where we as women struggle so much with money, because one, we're uncomfortable talking about it. Two, we have a hard time educating ourselves on the topic, because I do feel that it is very masculine, very male dominated industry. And three, I just don't know. There's something in society that tells us that we need to do less. We need to do less. We can't be seen. Like, women are seen and not heard. Like, women belong in the kitchen. Like, these are stories that pop up for me. And so that's an underlying belief on if we make more money than our husband, that something must be off, right? And we like have to hush it. We can't like upset anybody. We don't want to ruffle any feathers. So very, very interesting stuff, right? And then I've been on the opposite end of it, where, and this is just my personal experience being on both ends of the spectrum. When I would make more money than my husband, I almost felt guilty. Like, I felt bad for him. Like, I was like, oh man, I really wish that my husband would get a raise. Like, I feel bad that I make so much more money than him. And it was like, I tried to pity him. I tried to like overcompensate, and he probably gave no shits. Like, he probably didn't notice. It probably was like nothing to his ego, or maybe it was, I don't know. I'll have to ask him. But it was just very interesting to see what stories I came up with as a woman being on both ends of the spectrum. You know, if I made too much money, oh, I felt bad. And like, I felt like I had to like give that money away so that like I had less money. Or I felt like he should ask for a raise, or he should switch his job so that he made as much or not more than me, because it felt weird to be the breadwinner. Like, I'll admit, like, I'm a strong, independent woman. But at the same time, it was weird because we've been conditioned that like men are the head of the household, right? And so it was almost like I was putting that much more pressure on myself being the quote unquote breadwinner, because I had the majority of the income, majority of the bills and expenses would fall on my back at that time. And so it was definitely adding more pressure to my situation. And I felt like, I had to like rise to the occasion, but I had to like bring everybody with me. So it was almost very exhausting at the same time, because not only was I working more, I had more responsibility, but then I had these underlying beliefs about my money story, and that maybe I was better, even though I wasn't better. Does this make sense? And then same thing for like parenting, right? So then they talk about stay-at-home dad versus stay-at-home mom, and how neither gets the same question. So for example, say my husband is, because he stayed at home with them before, you know, not any like long-term time, but like if I have a work conference, or if I'm going on a retreat, or if I'm hosting an event, like he has to be a parent, right? So it is his job to be a dad at that said time. And one of my biggest pet peeves is people would say, oh, who's watching your children? As if their father was incapable of watching them, you know? And so on the opposite end of that, when my husband goes out of town for work, nobody has ever asked me, or I believe in the history of asking females, who's going to watch your kids while your husband's gone? I've never been asked that. And I don't know if you've ever been asked that. But it's just very, very interesting. And so I don't know if you want to call it like male, female gender roles, or like the mom, dad. I want us to bring awareness to this, that men are showing up as fathers more and more each and every day, which is fucking incredible. Like, I get goosebumps thinking about it, because I can't imagine a day and time to where my husband could not have the opportunity to father his children. Like, I love nothing more than seeing him with them and being able to like help take care of them and give them baths and change diapers and make dinner. Like, we are a team, we are a family unit. And so we each have our roles within that unit, but our roles are interchangeable, right? So at any given time, like, I can go outside and play catch and like get dirty and do all of like the masculine things. I can throw on my shit kickers and hang with the best of them. And at the same time, he can play, you know, dress up or whatever. Not that like he dresses up, but like he could paint my daughter's fingernails. He could do her hair. He can play Barbie. He can do dinner and dishes and laundry and all of these quote unquote feminine roles. So we have conditioned our children, or what our goal is to expose our children to multiple roles so that if and when they decide to be parents, it's not men do this, women do this. Know that women can do anything they want and men can do anything they want. We are equal in a sense. We both have pros and cons to our roles. We may do things better at certain things and or at other things, but in no way, shape, or form are we better or worse than our counterpart, right? It's just like the yin and yang. So my husband will be the strength to my weaknesses and vice versa. And so I really want to bring awareness to this whole, I don't even know like what the word I'm looking for is, just to have the conversation around women being breadwinners in their home and maybe not being the quote unquote mom role, and that men are also capable of being in the stay-at-home dad role. Like, men don't always have to be the breadwinner. There's some men who would kill to be a stay-at-home dad, but maybe they've had it conditioned in their brain, or they've been brainwashed to believe that they can't do that they have to be the breadwinner. It's all very, very interesting stuff. And so I want you just to take a look at your own life and see what roles you and your spouse or your partner, or maybe you're solo parenting, maybe you're all the roles. How does that look for you? And how can you be more open and maybe ask better questions and be more supportive when you see others not in the quote unquote specific gender role of a previous time? That's all I want to leave you with today, is that just to be a little more aware that times are changing. Women still feel this underlying pressure to minimize themselves, while men feel this underlying pressure to maximize themselves. And just know that it is okay to be where you are at right here, right now. We don't have to judge one another. We can just simply be, and that is okay. That is okay to just be who you are. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. I will link to this in the show notes if you found this interesting, or if you want to continue this conversation. Screenshot this, share it on social media, tag me at sasha.davis, or send me a message at sasha.davis. Or you can send me an email at support@sashadavis.com. I look forward to hearing from you guys. I love, love, love the feedback on the podcast so far this year. There's so many more good conversations to be had around this topic and many, many more topics. I'm really excited for the upcoming interviews too. So stay tuned. Every Wednesday, we're going to have an interview series with a new person and a new topic, and kind of conversations around what that looks like in their life. Okay. So I want to bring on new people each week to share their stories, their experiences, and how the lessons they've learned you might be able to learn from too. So stay tuned. All right. Have a kick-ass week, you guys. I'll catch you next time.